I never thought I'd be the kind of guy writing one of these posts, but here I am, sitting in the living room of the house I grew up in, watching a woman I barely know redecorate like she owns the place. Spoiler, she doesn't. My name's Trevor. I'm 27, single, and I work remotely as a systems analyst. Boring job title, I know, but it pays well, and I've always been good with numbers. That talent came in handy when I inherited the house 3 years ago after my mom passed. She left it to me, not my dad. I'll get to that. For now, just know this. I've owned this house, on paper and in every legal sense, since I was 24. My name is on the deed, and the mortgage was paid off years ago. I've been letting my dad stay here rent-free ever since. It's the house he and mom bought together back in the 90s, and even though it's mine now, it never felt right to kick him out. He's still my dad, even if we haven't exactly been close. Growing up, Dad was kind of there, but not really. You know the type. He went to work, came home, ate dinner in silence, and disappeared into the garage until bedtime. My mom, on the other hand, was everything. My best friend, my rock, my teacher, my defender. When she got sick, I dropped everything to take care of her. She had ovarian cancer. The bad kind. The kind that gives you hope and then rips it away again just when you start to believe she'll pull through. It was 2 years of hospital runs, medication schedules, and late nights sobbing into the kitchen table. I stayed by her side until the very end. Dad didn't. He couldn't handle it. The man checked out emotionally sometime around her second surgery and never really came back. When she passed, I was devastated. But I wasn't surprised when her lawyer told me the house was left to me, not to him. She said she wanted to make sure I always had a place to call home. That stuck with me. The deed was quietly transferred, the will settled, and life went on. I let Dad stay, mostly because I didn't have the heart to uproot him, and also because I was rarely around. My job allows me to travel, and for the past year or so, I'd been doing just that, working from Airbnbs, visiting friends in other states, chasing a kind of freedom I never got to experience in my 20s. But all of that changed 6 months ago. Dad met someone new. Her name is Marlene. She came into his life like a summer thunderstorm, loud, sudden, and leaving a mess behind. I first met her when I came home for Thanksgiving last year. I walked through the door and saw this tall woman in her late 40s rearranging the living room furniture, wearing one of my mom's old scarves like it was some kind of fashion statement. I froze in the doorway, suitcase still in hand, heart racing as I watched her reposition the armchair that had always sat next to the window, Mom's reading chair. "Oh, you must be Trevor," she chirped, walking up to me like we were old friends. "Your father told me all about you." "I'm Marlene." I just nodded, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My dad walked in from the kitchen like this was completely normal, handed me a beer, and acted like everything was fine. I didn't say anything that first night. I sat at the dinner table, listened to them talk about the cruise they were planning, and tried to ignore the fact that my mom's favorite photos had been taken down from the hallway wall. By Christmas, she had moved in. No warning. No heads up. I got back from a work trip in Colorado, unlocked the door, and found her clothes hanging in the front closet. My mom's wedding china had been packed away in the garage, replaced with some cheap pastel dishes that looked like they came from a yard sale. I confronted my dad about it, but he just waved it off. "Marlene's helping me reorganize. It's time for a fresh start." A fresh start. Right. From the very beginning, there was something about her that rubbed me the wrong way. She had this way of inserting herself into conversations she didn't belong in, of making decisions like she'd always been part of the family. I caught her throwing out some of my mom's keepsakes once. Old birthday cards, journals, stuff that didn't mean anything to her, but meant everything to me. When I called her out on it, she gave me this tight-lipped smile and said, "Some things are better left in the past, sweetie." Sweetie, that's when the first real crack formed. I didn't want to start a war, especially not with Dad acting like he was suddenly in love again. I figured if I just stayed out of her way, things would settle. Maybe she'd learn boundaries. Maybe she'd realize I wasn't some kid living in his parents' basement. I was the owner of the house, the guy paying the property taxes, the one keeping the lights on. But Marlene didn't see it that way. To her, I was the guest. It started with little things. She began locking the liquor cabinet, claiming I drank too much after I poured myself a single whiskey one night while watching a football game. She reorganized the kitchen and moved all the pans I used to the garage shelf, telling me I was cluttering the space. She even started commenting on my clothes, suggesting I dress more professionally while working from home. "You never know who might be watching on those Zoom calls," she said with a wink. I laughed it off at first. It wasn't worth the fight, but the tension built slowly, like water rising in a glass. Every passive-aggressive comment, every snide remark, every time she referred to the house as ours, it chipped away at my patience. Then came the chore chart. I walked into the kitchen one morning and found a laminated schedule pinned to the fridge. My name was on it, highlighted in green. I was apparently responsible for guest duties, vacuuming, cleaning the downstairs bathroom, taking out the trash every night. I ripped it down, tossed it in the trash, and tried to forget it. That night, she confronted me like I had committed a federal crime. "Trevor, I put a lot of effort into that chart," she said, arms crossed, voice dripping with fake calm. "We all need to contribute to the household. I don't think it's fair for you to just come and go as you please." I stared at her. "I own this house, Marlene. You're living here because I allow it. Don't forget that." She blinked like I'd slapped her. My dad shuffled in a second later, asking what the commotion was about. I told him, bluntly, that I was tired of being treated like a guest in my own home. Marlene jumped in before he could respond. "He's just being difficult again, Dan. Maybe it's time we talked about setting some boundaries." Boundaries. That word echoed in my head for days. I knew what was coming next, even before it arrived, just not the scale of it. 2 weeks later, after a short work trip to Chicago, I returned home to find an envelope taped to my bedroom door. Inside was a typed letter, complete with bullet points and legal jargon, courtesy of Marlene and Dan. It said that, effective immediately, I would be required to pay $800 a month in rent to continue residing in the family home. It also listed rules. No guests past 9 p.m., no loud music, no cooking after 10 p.m., and all shared spaces were to be kept tidy and presentable at all times. The last line nearly made me laugh out loud. "Failure to comply will result in termination of your stay." I sat on the edge of my bed, holding that letter in my hands, heart pounding, part of me wondering if this was some kind of twisted prank. But I knew better. This was Marlene's play. She thought she was asserting control. She didn't know that control had never been hers to begin with. And the best part? She didn't realize the eviction notice she was so quick to threaten had already been signed. But I'll get to that. What happened next made everything before look like child's play. I didn't respond to the rent letter right away. Truth be told, I needed time to think. Not because I was second-guessing myself. Oh no, I knew exactly where I stood, but because I wanted to be absolutely sure that when I did respond, it would leave no room for doubt. I'm not the kind of guy who explodes. I've never been into public shouting matches or dramatic fights. I like to stay calm, measured, strategic, but that doesn't mean I let things slide. I just wait until the moment is right. In the meantime, Marlene wasted no time ramping things up. The day after the letter, she changed the Wi-Fi password. No warning, no note, just silence. I woke up, brewed a cup of coffee, opened my laptop to start the day's work, and boom, no internet connection. I checked the router. Everything was lit up, working fine. Then I noticed a tiny sticky note taped to the side of the modem. "For paying tenants only. I laughed out loud. I honestly couldn't believe it. Petty didn't even begin to cover it. She had actually gone out of her way to log into the admin portal and change the Wi-Fi password just to prove some imaginary point. When I asked Dad about it, he shrugged. "Marlene handles the utilities now," he said, flipping through a magazine like I wasn't standing right there. "She says if you're not contributing, you don't get access." Contributing. That word started popping up more and more. Suddenly, everything I did, or didn't do, was framed through that lens. Didn't empty the dishwasher? I wasn't contributing. Left a jacket on the back of the couch? I wasn't respecting shared space. Even my own bedroom wasn't safe. Marlene came in one afternoon while I was on a call, holding a small trash bin. "Just doing the rounds," she said with a saccharine smile. "This place gets so cluttered." I stared at her, headset still on, mid-sentence with a client. She didn't even blink. Just walked in, scooped up my wastebasket, and left like it was the most natural thing in the world. After that, I bought a lock for my door. She didn't like that either. "Oh, so now we're locking doors," she said the next morning at breakfast, slapping a spoonful of cottage cheese onto a plate like it had personally offended her. "Feels a little hostile, don't you think?" I didn't answer. I didn't even look up. I just sipped my coffee and waited for the next shoe to drop. It didn't take long. A week later, I came home from the gym to find my bedroom completely rearranged. Bed moved, desk shoved against the wall, even my posters taken down and replaced with a painting of sunflowers that looked like it came from a waiting room. My heart dropped into my stomach. I rushed to the closet. Thankfully, my documents were untouched, but my clothes had been folded and reorganized like I was a guest at a hotel. Marlene thought it needed a woman's touch, Dad said later, when I confronted him. A woman's touch? I snapped. This isn't a dollhouse. This is my room. In my house. But he didn't care. He was completely under her spell. I could see it in the way he looked at her when she walked into a room, like she was the sun, and he was some half-frozen satellite, just grateful for the warmth. I wanted to believe he still had a backbone somewhere under all that admiration, but every time I reached for it, he let her speak for him. She's just trying to help, he said. You could show a little appreciation. Appreciation? For what? For invading my space? For treating me like a squatter? It got worse. Marlene started telling the neighbors that she and Dad had taken Trevor in, like I was some poor struggling millennial who had nowhere else to go. I found this out from Mrs. Sandoval next door, who pulled me aside one afternoon while I was mowing the lawn. It's nice that your dad and his new wife are helping you get back on your feet, she said with a gentle smile. I almost dropped the mower. Excuse me. You know, just letting you stay here for a while. Marlene said you were between jobs. Between jobs. I hadn't missed a single paycheck in 5 years. That night, I sat alone in my room, lights off, trying to breathe through the pressure in my chest. I felt like I was losing control of my own life, my own house. Every time I tried to assert myself, Marlene twisted it into an act of aggression. And my dad? He just watched, nodded, shrugged, whatever kept the peace. It wasn't just control she wanted. It was ownership. And then came the mail incident. I ordered a set of legal documents to be sent to the house. Nothing secret, just some updates to my living trust and property records. But when the package didn't show up, I checked the tracking. It had been delivered 2 days earlier. I asked Dad if he'd seen it. Ask Marlene, he said. She handles the mail now. So I did. Oh, that envelope, she said with a smirk. I put it in the recycling. Thought it was junk. My mouth went dry. You opened my mail? It had the house address on it, she said, feigning innocence. And no name. I thought it was just one of those political flyers. It had my full name on it, printed in bold. She knew exactly what she was doing. That night, I retrieved the torn remains from the recycling bin, pieced them together on my desk like a crime scene, and stared at them until I couldn't anymore. Something in me snapped, not with rage, but with clarity. I realized in that moment that Marlene wasn't going to stop. She wasn't just marking territory. She was erasing me. And my dad? He was letting her. I started sleeping with noise-canceling headphones just to block out the sound of their nightly wine and TV sessions downstairs. Every day felt like walking through someone else's home. Her cooking took over the fridge. Her floral scent clung to the furniture. Her laugh, loud and grating, echoed through the halls like some parody of domestic bliss. She even replaced my mom's piano. That one hurt more than I expected. I walked in one weekend to find movers wheeling out the old upright that had sat untouched in the corner since Mom passed. It wasn't in great shape, but it was hers. She used to play lullabies on it when I was a kid. I had planned to restore it someday. Instead, Marlene had traded it in for a sleek new digital keyboard. More modern, she said, sipping tea as the old piano disappeared out the door. It fits the aesthetic better. I didn't say a word. I just turned and left. I drove around for hours that day, aimless, numb. I ended up in the parking lot of an old diner on the edge of town, just staring at the sky. I remember thinking, this can't go on. Something has to change. But it wasn't until the barbecue incident that things truly came to a head. It was a sunny Saturday, early spring, the kind of afternoon that begged for a cold drink and burgers on the grill. I invited a few friends over, just 3 people, all close buddies from college who'd been asking to visit. I didn't even plan to go inside. Just burgers, beers, and a speaker in the backyard. Marlene was not pleased. She came out halfway through, arms crossed, lips pursed, and informed me that we were disrupting the tranquility of the neighborhood. My friends looked at me, confused. I tried to laugh it off. We'll keep it down, don't worry. But she wasn't done. 10 minutes later, she was back, with my dad in tow, and they stood on the porch like a pair of HOA enforcers. "This is not appropriate, Trevor," she said. "You didn't ask permission." "Permission?" I echoed. "To use my own backyard?" Her eyes narrowed. "You mean our backyard?" That was it. The word hung in the air like a bomb. My friends got quiet. I stared at her, heat rising in my chest. "You know what?" I said slowly. "Why don't we take this inside?" I led my friends in, shut the back door, and told them to hang tight in the living room. Then I walked into the study, closed the door, and pulled out a file from the locked drawer of my desk. Inside was everything. The deed, in my name. The will, signed and notarized. The transfer documents. The lawyer's letter. And, tucked neatly in the back, a legally prepared, but as of yet undelivered, eviction notice. I had been holding on to it for months, hoping it wouldn't come to this. But now it wasn't a matter of if. It was a matter of when. And the next move was mine. But before I could act, something happened that flipped everything on its head and gave me the leverage I never knew I needed. Something Marlene never saw coming. There's a moment, right before a major betrayal, when your gut tries to warn you. It's like this sudden, quiet tension in your chest, this odd weight you can't place. I felt that the morning it happened, but I couldn't explain why. The weather was normal. The coffee tasted the same. Dad was already out of the house by 8 a.m., and Marlene was humming in the kitchen like she hadn't spent the previous day accusing me of sabotaging the home's peace. Everything looked normal, but something was off. It started with a phone call from my bank. A routine fraud check, they said. "Mr. Clark," the rep said, "we just wanted to verify a recent attempt to change the mailing address on your checking and investment accounts." The request came in yesterday afternoon. I froze, phone pressed to my ear, blood draining from my face. "I didn't make any request," I said. "Okay, thank you. We've already flagged it and reversed the change. But the address submitted matches what we already have on file, just with a slight variation. It was listed as care of Marlene Clark. Is that a relative of yours?" I nearly dropped the phone. I hung up, heart pounding in my chest. The rest of the conversation was a blur. I thanked the rep, locked my account with a verification code, and changed every password I could think of. Then I just sat there, staring at the floor, trying to process what I'd just heard. Marlene had tried to access my accounts. She wasn't just being manipulative anymore. She was actively trying to replace me. It wasn't just the Wi-Fi, the furniture, or the piano. It wasn't just the rumors she was spreading to the neighbors or the power trip she'd been riding since she moved in. This was something different. This was deliberate, targeted. She had submitted an address change using my house, with her name listed as the recipient. And that's when it clicked. I ran to the office and yanked open the file drawer again. In addition to the deed and the trust paperwork, I kept a binder of old mail, just in case I ever needed to prove residency or ownership. I flipped through it, hand trembling, and found it, an old mortgage statement addressed to me. Then another. Then a tax bill. But sitting right between them was something new, a piece of mail I didn't recognize. It was from a home insurance provider, not mine, and it had Marlene's name on it. Policy application, pending underwriting approval for joint homeowner coverage. I stared at it for a long moment, unable to believe what I was seeing. Joint homeowner. She had applied for co-ownership of my house. And worse, my dad had co-signed. I'm not a crier, but that one hit deep. My throat tightened, and I just sat there in the dim study, blinds half drawn, papers spread across the desk like evidence in a trial. My own father, my blood, had signed his name on a document that tried to hand over a part of the only thing my mom ever left me. Without my consent. Without even telling me. A few hours later, he came home like nothing happened. I didn't even give him time to hang up his coat. "What is this?" I said, holding the insurance form in his face. He blinked, confused. "Where did you get that?" "I found it in the mail bin." "You didn't even try to hide it." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "It's just a policy application," he muttered. Marlene wanted to protect her assets. Her what? I snapped. "She doesn't own a single brick of this house. She lives here," he said weakly. "We're building a life together. She moved in 8 months ago, Dad." 8. She threw away Mom's piano. She tried to change my bank records. And now she's applying for ownership. His face tightened. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally seeing it clearly." He didn't say another word, just turned and walked out of the room. That night, I locked my door and sat on the floor with a blanket around my shoulders, shaking. Not from fear, something worse. I felt unanchored. Like the last thread of family I had was just gone. The next few days were a blur of cold civility. Marlene kept pretending nothing had happened. She chirped good morning, baked muffins, offered me coffee, like we were in a sitcom. Dad avoided me completely. The house was quiet, too quiet, and the silence made everything feel haunted. My mom's absence suddenly felt massive. And then came the party. Marlene's birthday, apparently. I wasn't invited. She planned the whole thing on Facebook, right under my nose, and told the neighbors it was just a little get-together. I only found out when I walked into the kitchen and saw a giant, "Happy Birthday Marlene" banner sitting on the table. She looked up from arranging cupcakes like she'd been caught stealing. "Oh, you're here," she said, adjusting her blouse. "We weren't sure you'd be around this weekend." I stared at her. "You live in my house. Where else would I be?" She didn't answer, just smiled and went back to her frosting. That Saturday, people started arriving around 4 p.m. I recognized most of them. Neighbors, some of Dad's old work friends, a couple of women Marlene played pickleball with. I kept to myself, upstairs, headphones on, trying to drown out the noise. But even through 2 closed doors, I could hear her laughing. Could hear her say our home at least 4 different times. Then I heard my name. "She's trying to help Trevor grow up," someone said. I couldn't place the voice. "Well, I'm just glad she's finally putting her foot down," said another. "He's been living off them for too long." That was enough. I came downstairs, slow, calm, letting every head in the room turn toward me like I was some ghost haunting their wine and cheese buffet. Marlene's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't stop smiling. "There he is," she said. "The man of the hour." I didn't respond. I walked to the dining room, grabbed the mail bin, and fished out 3 envelopes addressed to me. I held them up, turned to her, and said, "You go through my mail again, and I press charges." The room fell silent. She blinked. "Trevor, this isn't the time." "No," I said, voice low and even. "You don't get to say when the time is. You don't get to throw a party in my house, lie to people about who owns it, and pretend I'm the problem." Someone in the back coughed. Marlene's mask cracked just a little. "I think you need to calm down. And I think you need to pack a bag," I replied. Her smile faltered. "Excuse me." I didn't repeat myself. I turned, walked back upstairs, and locked the door. That night, long after the last car had pulled out of the driveway and the house had gone quiet again, I slid the envelope from my drawer and looked at it one last time. The eviction notice. Signed. Dated. Legal. I'd held onto it for months. Waited for the right moment. Now, the moment had arrived. But just as I was sealing the envelope to deliver it, I heard something that made me pause. Whispers. Outside my bedroom door. I crept closer, pressed my ear to the frame, heart pounding. "Marlene, he's unstable. I don't feel safe with him here." "Dad, you think we can really get him out?" "Marlene, if he lays a hand on me or threatens me again, we can file something. I've already looked into it. Emotional distress. Unsafe living conditions. If we play it right, we might be able to get the court to take our side. Once he's out, we can appeal to the city to restructure the deed. Say there was a mistake in the will." "Dad, it's risky." "Marlene, so is letting him stay. I'm not sharing my life with a spoiled man-child who hides behind paperwork. It's time we take control." My vision blurred. My fingers curled into fists. They were planning to fake a conflict. To get me removed from my own house. To challenge the will. To destroy everything my mom tried to protect. And my own father was part of it. That was the moment. The betrayal wasn't loud or dramatic. It wasn't a slap or a shout or a slammed door. It was that quiet, chilling moment of hearing the 2 people under my roof scheme to erase me like I was some temporary inconvenience. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I prepared. Because what they didn't know was that everything, every lie, every letter, every whisper, was about to come crashing down. Rock bottom doesn't always come with a crash. Sometimes it arrives in silence, sits next to you at breakfast, uninvited, and pretends it belongs there. That's what it felt like waking up the next morning. I didn't recognize my own home anymore. Every creak in the hallway felt like an intruder. Every family photo on the wall now had Marlene's smug grin smiling back at me. Even the smell had changed, lavender something. Artificial, powdery, nothing like Mom's old candles. I spent that Sunday in a kind of haze, just watching the sun crawl across the floorboards. I didn't leave my room. I didn't speak to my dad. Marlene tried knocking once in the morning, some fake sweet voice asking if I wanted breakfast. I didn't answer. She didn't try again. I kept replaying those whispered words from the night before. He's unstable. We can file something. Say there was a mistake in the will. It made my skin crawl. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a full-blown ambush. Coordinated. Calculated. And worst of all, coming from the man who used to carry me on his shoulders during parades and cheer the loudest at my high school graduation. I couldn't help wondering if he was always this way. If Mom saw it. If she'd known what would happen the moment she wasn't around to keep him tethered. Maybe that's why she left the house to me instead of him. Maybe she saw this future playing out in her final weeks, silent and sharp-eyed from her hospice bed, knowing full well who he'd become when grief gave him an excuse. But knowing that didn't make it any easier to live through. The next few days blurred together. I tried to keep things normal on the surface, woke up, made coffee, worked in silence. I showered at night when I knew they were asleep. I ate when the kitchen was empty. I moved like a ghost. Every time I left the house, I checked my room twice, locking everything down. I even bought a portable safe for my documents and hid it in the false panel behind my closet drawer. Paranoid? Maybe, but I wasn't taking chances anymore. Then one afternoon, I came home and found my bedroom door slightly open. My heart dropped. I always locked it. Always. I pushed it open slowly, praying that maybe, just maybe, I'd forgotten for once. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew. The air felt off. Violated. The safe was untouched. That much was a relief. But my laptop was gone. I spun around, searching. Desk drawers open. Books scattered. My headset ripped from its stand and tossed on the bed like trash. I didn't scream. Didn't yell. I just stood there, staring at the hollow space where my computer used to be, my thoughts already sprinting through worst-case scenarios. My work was on there. Financial info. Passwords. Contracts. I found Marlene in the kitchen, sipping wine in leggings and a cardigan, flipping through a magazine like it was just another Tuesday. "Where's my laptop?" I asked. She didn't even blink. "Oh, that old thing. I moved it." It looked like it was collecting dust. "You went into my room," I said flatly. "You didn't lock it." "Yes, I did." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but she smiled. "Well, maybe you thought you did. Where is it?" She gestured vaguely toward the hallway. I put it on the coffee table. I walked into the living room. Sure enough, there it was, open, on the table, screen black. I touched it, and it was warm. Someone had just been using it. I opened it. The login screen had been attempted 3 times. Wrong password each time. I locked it down immediately, wiped it remotely, and changed every password I could think of. Then I backed it all up to an external drive and buried that drive in the back seat compartment of my car. That night, I called my friend Ethan. He's a real estate lawyer. Knows his way around property law better than anyone I've ever met. We hadn't talked in a while. I hadn't wanted to involve anyone in this mess. But now I needed backup. I met him the next day at a coffee shop a few miles away. He listened quietly as I laid it all out. The letter, the insurance policy, the mail tampering, the account access attempt, the whispers outside my door. I showed him photos, emails, even the time-stamped video footage from my phone of Marlene rummaging through my drawers once when I'd left it recording on accident. He whistled low. "You've got enough to press charges if you want." I nodded. "I don't want it to go there. Not yet." He leaned back. "So what do you want?" I paused, sipped my coffee. "I want them out. Quietly. Permanently. No drama. No court fight. Just gone." He smiled. "Then let's make that happen." That meeting became the beginning of my plan. Ethan walked me through the legalities of eviction for non-paying tenants, even if they were family. He explained the necessary notices, the timelines, the paperwork. I already had the signed eviction notice, but I hadn't served it yet. He suggested I do it by the book. Hire a process server. Document everything. Be polite, professional, cold. Treat it like a business transaction, he said. You're not evicting your dad. You're removing 2 unlawful occupants from a property you legally own. Period. I nodded, but my chest still felt heavy. The emotional part, the part where I had to come to terms with the fact that my father wasn't the man I thought he was, that was going to take longer to process. When I got home that evening, Marlene was waiting in the living room. "I noticed you've been a little distant," she said, fake concern painted all over her face. I didn't answer. She stood and crossed her arms. "Look, Trevor, I get it. You're feeling displaced. But this house isn't just yours anymore. We're a family now. Your father and I are building something. My fists clenched at my sides. You had no right to touch my mail. Or my laptop. Her eyes flickered. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being patient, which is more than you deserve. She stepped forward. If you're not happy here, maybe you should find somewhere else to stay. There it was. The invitation to walk away from my own home. I stared at her, long and hard. Then I said, you know what? Maybe I will. I left that night. Packed a bag, laptop, documents, clothes. I didn't tell them where I was going. For the next week, I stayed at a friend's place. Slept on his couch. Worked during the day. Planned at night. Ethan helped me draft the official eviction notice. We scheduled the service date. We contacted a locksmith. We prepped everything. Legally, emotionally, tactically. And the whole time, I watched from afar as Marlene and my dad settled deeper into the illusion that they'd won. They changed the Wi-Fi again. Posted new photos online. Our home, fresh start, family dinners. They didn't even ask where I'd gone. Didn't text. Didn't call. It was like I'd already been erased. But what they didn't know was that every day I was gone, I was getting stronger. More prepared. More certain. Rock bottom had burned everything that tied me to the hope that things might get better on their own. Now, I was ready to take everything back. I don't think I truly understood the phrase the comeback is always stronger than the setback until that month away. The day I walked out of my own house with a duffel bag over my shoulder and the sound of Marlene's smug humming in the background, I felt like I was losing. It didn't matter that I had the legal documents or the moral high ground or even that the house was in my name. Emotionally, I felt defeated, discarded, like I'd been outplayed in my own home. But time and distance can do something powerful when you're focused. They help you rebuild, not just plans, but purpose. I crashed at my friend Noah's place. He's the kind of guy who doesn't ask too many questions. He just handed me a spare key, cleared off a shelf in the fridge, and said, "Stay as long as you need." That first night, I barely spoke. I just lay on his old futon staring at the ceiling, thinking about every red flag I'd ignored for the past year. The next morning, I made a decision. No more waiting. No more giving them space to scheme. It was time to start the process, slow, steady, and precise. The first thing I did was meet Ethan again. This time, I was all business. He helped me file the official eviction notice with the local court. Since Marlene and my father weren't paying rent and had no lease, they were considered licensees under the law, which meant they had no tenancy rights. We filed the notice to vacate with a 30-day window, more than generous, and scheduled a certified process server to deliver it personally. No chance of it being lost in the mail or accidentally shredded. Once that was in motion, I turned my attention inward, living away from home, away from the tension, the manipulation, the quiet warfare, was like suddenly exhaling after months of holding my breath. Noah's apartment was modest but clean, peaceful. No slammed doors. No passive-aggressive notes. No one rifling through my things. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could hear myself think. I worked harder than ever during those weeks. Without the stress of Marlene's constant nitpicking or my dad's ghost-like absence, I found a groove I hadn't felt since college. I woke up early, hit the gym, knocked out projects ahead of schedule, and even picked up 2 new freelance clients. The extra income meant I could start setting things up for after the eviction, contingency plans, upgrades to the house, maybe even renovations Mom had always dreamed of doing. But it wasn't just financial momentum I was gaining. My confidence started coming back. Every time I opened a message from my lawyer confirming another legal step taken, or reviewed footage from the security camera I discreetly set up outside the front door before leaving, I felt less like a victim and more like the version of myself my mom raised me to be. Thoughtful, methodical, and unwilling to be bullied. Speaking of the camera, Marlene didn't notice it. It was hidden inside the decorative birdhouse on the front porch. Battery-operated, Wi-Fi enabled, motion-triggered, backed up to the cloud. I'd installed it on a whim months ago, mostly to monitor package theft. But now it was my best tool. I got clips sent to my email every time someone came or left. At first, it was boring stuff. Marlene waving to the neighbors, my dad unloading groceries, a few unfamiliar faces stopping by. But then one video changed everything. It was just after 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. Marlene stood on the porch with some guy I didn't recognize, mid-50s, tan, expensive-looking watch, khakis that screamed financial advisor. The video had no sound, but body language said it all. She handed him a stack of papers. He flipped through them, pointed at something. She nodded. Then they shook hands. I called Ethan immediately. I think she's trying to sell something, I said. He asked me to send the clip. An hour later, he called back. Trevor, you were right to be suspicious. The man she met with works for a private real estate brokerage. If she's trying to transfer property, we need to act fast. She may be misrepresenting her ownership status. I felt my throat go dry. She wouldn't dare. He sighed. She's bold, but not smart. We'll make sure this gets documented. If she's forging anything, she's committing fraud. That will help your case even more. We added the footage to our file. That's when I realized I had the upper hand now, and I needed to act like it. I started preparing the house. Noah's cousin, Chelsea, worked in interior design. I paid her to draw up renovation concepts for the kitchen and living room. She created beautiful mock-ups, light oak flooring, open shelving, new lighting, earth tones with subtle modern touches. She even had a friend in landscaping who offered to draft a new backyard plan, complete with a fire pit and pergola. I didn't just want them out. I wanted to breathe life back into that house, to make it mine again. But I didn't stop there. I also met with a local realtor, not to sell, but to evaluate. I wanted a full appraisal. When she toured the place, from old photos and my descriptions, she said the house could easily be worth 30% more with the updates I was planning. That number stuck with me. Not just the value of the house, but the value of taking it back. The best part? All of it. Every quote, every plan, every improvement was under my name. No co-signers. No household contributions. No one else's fingerprints on the vision. Meanwhile, back at the house, the tension was boiling. According to the server I hired, Marlene answered the door when he delivered the eviction notice. She refused to take it at first, but once she realized it was official, she apparently tried to argue with him. Good luck throwing out your own father, she reportedly snapped before slamming the door. The server, unfazed, logged the interaction and handed me the receipt. They've got 30 days, he said. After that, we file for a court order. Then you can bring a sheriff. But I didn't want it to get that far. If I could make them leave without dragging this through the courts, I would. The next week, I returned to the house for the first time since leaving. They weren't home. I stepped through the front door and just stood there for a minute. The smell was different. Stronger. Like overly sweet candles mixed with lemon disinfectant. The furniture had shifted again. My mom's old coffee table had been pushed against the wall, replaced with a modern glass one that didn't fit the vibe at all. The walls had more framed pictures of Marlene and Dad. Even the cat, my childhood cat, Bailey, looked confused when he saw me. He meowed like he hadn't seen me in years. I knelt down and pet him. I'm getting you out of here, buddy, I whispered. I went straight to my room. Still intact, still locked. But I noticed something new. The carpet outside had been replaced. Not professionally, just a cheap runner rug, tacked down sloppily, like they were trying to cover something. I peeled it up. There, in faint permanent marker, were the words, Trevor's room, no entry. My mom had written it when I was a kid. I remember helping her stencil it after we painted the hallway. Seeing it now, faded, half erased, covered up, was like someone had drawn a line through my entire childhood. I didn't cry, but I sat there for a long time. Before I left, I slipped a typed letter into the kitchen drawer, the one Marlene used for her mail. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't emotional. Just a clear reminder. As per the legal eviction notice served on date, you have X days remaining to vacate the property located at address, currently and lawfully owned by Trevor Clark. Failure to do so will result in a court-ordered removal. No further communication is necessary unless regarding the logistics of departure. This is not a negotiation. T. Clark. It was short, firm, professional. It felt good to write. Over the next 2 weeks, things changed rapidly. I heard through the grapevine, thanks to Mrs. Sandoval again, that Marlene had started telling people I'd bequeathed the house to her and Dad. She made it sound like I'd left town for good. She even told the postman to redirect my mail to her name. I corrected that in less than a day, filed a complaint with the post office, updated my forwarding address, and when she tried to post online that she was hosting another garden brunch at her house, I sent a takedown notice to the event site with my property deed attached. The listing was removed within 48 hours. One by one, I stripped her control away. Quietly, legally, permanently. I wasn't screaming or making threats. I was just undoing every string she'd tried to pull, every lie she'd spun, every inch she'd stolen. And then something unexpected happened. My father called me. It was 8:13 p.m. on a Thursday. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me said I should. "Trevor," he said, "we need to talk." I waited. "I didn't think it would get this far," he continued. "She said you were just bluffing." I didn't answer. There was a long pause. I didn't sign anything, you know. Nothing legal. The insurance thing, she filled that out. I didn't co-sign. I didn't know she was doing it behind your back. Now that surprised me. "She forged your signature?" He hesitated. "She asked me to sign something once. I didn't. I didn't want to get in the middle. But you were in the middle." "I know," he said quietly. "I should have said something. I should have stopped it earlier." Another pause. She's talking about leaving." My heartbeat slowed. "She said she's not staying where she isn't wanted." I stayed silent. "I don't know what I'm going to do." That last part, "I don't know what I'm going to do," wasn't meant as an update. It was a plea, but I had no comfort left to give. I simply said, "You've got 15 days. Then I hung up. The next day, I sent Ethan one final update. "They're almost out." Because even if they didn't know it yet, their time was up. 2 days after that phone call, I got a text from Mrs. Sandoval. "Trevor, I thought you should know. There's a U-Haul in your driveway." I stared at it for a long moment, unsure what to feel. Relief? Triumph? The adrenaline-charged kind of excitement you get when you finally win an argument that's been festering for months? But the weirdest part was how numb I felt. Like I had been preparing for this so long that the actual moment of movement, the shift, barely registered. They were finally packing up. I didn't rush over. I waited. Let them sweat. Let them wonder if I'd show. I had no intention of confronting them unless necessary. At this point, I had all the leverage I needed and none of the emotional bandwidth left to waste. But while the visible battle was winding down, the hidden part, the part one hadn't even seen until recently, was just beginning to unravel. It started when Ethan called again. "You're going to want to sit down for this," he said. Should I be worried? No, but you'll be mad. He explained that after reviewing Marlene's insurance documents in more detail, specifically the joint homeowner policy she'd tried to apply for, he'd flagged something odd in the application. A box had been checked indicating joint financial interest in property, and listed my father's signature below. I thought he said he didn't sign anything. "That's the problem," Ethan said. "The signature doesn't match his actual handwriting. Not even close." He sent me a scanned copy. I opened it, leaned in, and immediately saw it. The D in Dan was written in a looped cursive that my dad never used. The rest was sloppy, almost like someone had forged it quickly, or carelessly. "Marlene forged it," I said, breath catching. "That's what it looks like." "Which is fraud, if we want to pursue it. And we can prove it." "We already can. I just needed your green light to move forward." I didn't say anything for a second. Then I nodded to myself. "Do it. Let's build the case." Because now, it wasn't just about eviction. It was about exposing her, legally, publicly, thoroughly. It was about the bigger picture. I had something she didn't expect: patience and receipts. I spent the next few days collecting everything. Every email, text, photograph, screenshot, voicemail, and video clip. I archived the footage of her giving those insurance documents to the man on the porch. I downloaded the audio from the camera that had picked up their whispered conversation about filing something against me. I backed up every photo of the house that showed her claiming ownership online, every family brunch post where she used the phrase, "our house," and every false statement she'd made to the neighbors that Mrs. Sandoval had kindly documented. And then I found something else. Buried in my old Gmail inbox was a shared Google Doc from 3 months ago, something she'd created and invited me to view, which I'd ignored at the time. The file was titled Household Budget Plus Contributions. It wasn't a budget. It was a narrative, a list of things she claimed to have provided to the house since moving in. Paint, cleaning supplies, new decor, utility payments, except most of them were either exaggerated or completely made up. At the bottom of the document, she had included a note. "If legal proceedings ever occur, this will help prove I've contributed financially to the household." I stared at that line, stunned. She had been preparing for this all along, positioning herself, creating a paper trail, even a fake one, just in case she ever needed to fight for the house. It was bold, almost impressive, but it also gave me exactly what I needed. I forwarded it to Ethan. "This shows intent," he said. She's been planning to assert false rights to the property from the beginning. With everything else you've gathered, this strengthens the fraud case. If she tries anything else, if she damages the home on her way out, if she refuses to return the keys, if she so much as changes the Wi-Fi password again, we can take her to court and win. Easily. Would she get jail time? I asked quietly. Unlikely. But civil penalties, fines, possible restitution? Absolutely. She's looking at a financial hit, Trevor. Good. Because money was the one thing Marlene seemed to care about more than control. It was always the undercurrent to everything she did. Her designer bags, her thinly veiled comments about financial responsibility, the way she bragged about managing the household budget, even though she wasn't paying a dime of rent. She'd made herself queen of a castle she didn't own, and now that her throne was crumbling, I could almost hear her scrambling to cling to every last scrap of illusion. Which is why I did the one thing she never expected. I went quiet. No confrontation. No final showdown. No dramatic speech on the porch as they loaded the last of their boxes. I didn't even check in with Mrs. Sandoval for updates. I just focused on myself, on work, on meetings with contractors, on checking things off my to-do list like I was already living in a post-Marlene world. And then, out of nowhere, I got a call. Blocked number. I debated letting it ring, but curiosity won. Trevor Clark? A voice asked. Female. Sharp. Professional. Who's asking? This is Danielle Myers. I'm a private investigator hired to verify claims related to a civil asset dispute. I believe you know a Marlene Dawson. I nearly dropped the phone. She hired you. I'm afraid I can't disclose my client. But I'm calling to verify whether you're the sole owner of the property at address. I exhaled slowly. I am. And is your name the only one listed on the deed? It is. There was a pause on the other end. She was typing something. And are you currently pursuing any legal action against Miss Dawson? That depends. Are you recording this? Another pause. No. But I can be, if necessary. Then yes, I said. I am. She thanked me and hung up. I stared at the wall for a full minute, pulse pounding. So she was still fighting. Even as the U-Haul pulled away. Even as the final days ticked down. Even as my lawyer gathered proof that could crater her financially, she was hiring investigators to look for angles. Loopholes. Leverage. And in that moment, I knew. She wasn't just trying to take the house. She was trying to take me down with her. Which is when I stopped playing defense. I met with Ethan again. This time, we didn't talk about the eviction. That was already in motion. We talked about what came after. What if she sues? I asked. She won't win. But if she does it just to drain time, energy, money? He nodded slowly. Then you countersue. And that's when the idea hit me. Not just to end this, but to end it publicly. I told Ethan my plan. He raised an eyebrow, impressed. It's bold, he said. But it's clean. And completely legal. I want the whole truth on the record, I said. Every detail. Every lie. Every forged signature. I want her name attached to all of it. He smiled. Then let's go on offense. Because the truth is, I wasn't just evicting them anymore. I was preparing to make sure they could never do this to anyone else. I wasn't seeking revenge out of bitterness anymore. I was doing it to reclaim every inch of ground they tried to take from me. And the best part? They didn't even know the storm was coming. The day they moved out was gray, damp, and quiet. No sunshine. No birds. Just the dull rumble of a half-full U-Haul pulling out of the driveway I had memorized since childhood. I watched the live stream from my security camera on Noah's tablet. Marlene was barking orders at my dad while dragging a suitcase that looked heavier than it had any right to be. My father's face was unreadable, just blank, drawn, hollow. They didn't slam the door when they left. They didn't wave. They didn't say goodbye. That would have required the kind of dignity they never had. I waited until the next morning to return. There's something almost sacred about walking into your own home after it's been desecrated. The air felt still, suspended in awkward silence, like the walls were holding their breath. The hallway smelled like cheap perfume and leftover lemon disinfectant. The fridge was empty. Half the shelves were stripped. The living room had dents in the walls from where furniture had been dragged too quickly. But what stung the most? They'd taken Bailey. My cat. My mom's cat. The cat that used to sleep on her pillow for months after she passed, waiting for her to come home. He was gone. I stood in the hallway for 10 minutes with my hands in my pockets, jaw clenched, staring at the spot where his food bowl used to sit. And something in me turned cold. Not angry, not sad, just focused. They'd crossed a line I hadn't even drawn. So I called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. They out? Yes, but they took the cat. He paused. Seriously? Seriously. That's theft. I know. And we're already pressing charges for the forged signature and financial misrepresentation. This just adds more fuel. I didn't respond. I'll make the call, he said. Let's hit them with everything. And that's exactly what we did. Within 3 days, Ethan filed a multi-claim civil suit naming both Marlene and my father as co-defendants. The charges included fraudulent misrepresentation, attempted property theft, forgery of legal documents, the fake insurance co-signature, intentional interference with financial assets, her attempted bank address change, mail tampering, documented with time-stamped video and USPS complaint records, pet theft, yes, that's a thing, and Bailey was registered under my name at the vet. Ethan packaged the entire thing like a perfectly wrapped gift for the court. Clean, airtight, devastating. He even attached screenshots of Marlene's online posts where she referred to the house as ours and tried to organize brunches on a property she didn't own. But we didn't stop there. 2 weeks later, a certified letter was delivered to Marlene's new address, a modest condo she was renting on the other side of town. The letter was from the local newspaper's legal column editor. They'd received an anonymous tip, courtesy of Ethan's media contacts, regarding a pending fraud suit involving a woman who had attempted to steal ownership of a family home through forged paperwork and financial manipulation. The editor had no intention of printing names before the court hearing, but the letter served as a courtesy notice that they were monitoring the case for a potential feature on rising estate fraud trends. In short, we let her know that her reputation was now tied to her lies. She called me that night. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. Her voice, so often smug and condescending, was trembling. Trevor, we don't have to do this. Okay, we can work something out. This is getting out of hand. Your father didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean. Look, we were just trying to find our place. I listened to it twice. Then I forwarded it to Ethan. Sounds like an admission of guilt to me, he said. We added it to the file. The next few weeks were a flurry of legal back and forth. Marlene hired a lawyer, some smooth-talking guy from a downtown firm who probably specialized in family disputes and HOA nonsense. They tried to settle, offered to return any items mistakenly taken, and issue a formal apology in exchange for dropping the suit. Ethan rejected it without blinking. We're not settling, he told them. Your client tried to steal a 6-figure asset, alter financial records, and tampered with federal mail. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's a pattern. And we're going to make sure that pattern is fully documented in public record. Marlene's lawyer went quiet after that. That's when I made my final move. See, there's something else about owning a house people forget. You have control of the narrative. And in this digital age, that narrative extends everywhere. With Ethan's help, I filed a cease and desist against Marlene for misrepresenting ownership of the property in any public or digital forum. We sent copies to every neighborhood Facebook group she had ever posted in, every HOA mailing list she subscribed to, and even a few event websites she had used to organize her fake garden parties. We didn't smear her. We simply attached the legal documentation confirming my sole ownership of the house, explained that she had no rights to the property, and included a note that any continued misrepresentation would be met with legal escalation. It wasn't vindictive. It was precise. Neighbors started talking. Mrs. Sandoval texted me. I had no idea she was lying all that time. She told everyone you'd moved to Michigan. Even my dad's old golf buddy, Rick, called me out of the blue. Trevor, listen. I'm sorry I didn't ask sooner. Marlene said you'd given the house to your dad. We all just assumed. I mean, she made it sound so real. I know, I said. That's why I'm fixing it. But revenge isn't always about public exposure. Sometimes, the most satisfying part is the quiet reversal, the reclaiming of things they tried to take. So I went to the vet. I explained the situation. Provided documentation proving Bailey was mine, registered in my name, microchipped, vaccinated under my billing history for years. The vet staff was horrified. They confirmed that Marlene had brought Bailey in under the pretense that she was rescuing a cat from a neglectful home. They even said she tried to change the microchip information. Illegally. The vet filed an incident report. Animal control got involved. Within a week, An officer showed up at Marlene's door with a warrant to seize Bailey and return him to his lawful owner. He was back in my arms by sunset. Skinny, a little skittish, but still him. He curled up on my chest that night and purred like nothing had changed. That was the moment I felt it. Not victory, but closure. Every lie they spun had unraveled. Every manipulative power play had backfired. And every piece of what made that house mine, down to the cat sleeping on the windowsill, was finally home again. A month later, we had our court date. Marlene didn't show. She sent her lawyer. My father showed up. Alone. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. Smaller. We didn't speak. Just sat on opposite ends of the courtroom, flanked by silence and lawyers. Ethan laid out everything. The forged signature, the insurance scam, the tampered mail, the attempted bank fraud, the fabricated cohabitation claims, the theft of my pet. He did it calmly, with documents, screenshots, timestamps. No drama, no rage, just truth. At the end of the session, the judge didn't even hesitate. Verdict in my favor. Formal reprimand to Marlene. Court-ordered financial restitution. A permanent legal record of her fraud. Everything she'd tried to manipulate, twist, or fake was now cemented in black and white record. Indisputable, irreversible, humiliating. As for my dad, he approached me in the hallway afterward. Hands in his pockets. Eyes down. I didn't know she was doing all that, he mumbled. I thought I was starting over. You were, I said. But not with me. He nodded. Then he walked away. No apology. No grand moment. Just distance. Which, at that point, was all I needed. Back at the house, I lit the old fireplace for the first time in years. Bailey lay on the rug, purring. I sat in Mom's armchair, fresh coat of paint on the walls, her favorite book resting on the side table, and I realized something. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be final. And this was over. Fallout, when done right, isn't explosive. It's quiet, slow, inescapable, like smoke curling under a locked door, seeping into everything you thought was safe. That's how it was for Marlene and my father. No big, dramatic collapse. Just a gradual unraveling of the little empire they built on lies, manipulation, and fake charm. After the court ruling, Marlene went silent. She didn't appeal the decision, didn't return any of the formal demands for restitution payments, didn't even attempt to communicate through her lawyer. The court gave her 30 days to begin paying damages, or a lien would be placed against her assets. Though from what Ethan could gather, she didn't own much outright. Her car was leased. Her bank account was modest. The only reason she'd managed to keep up appearances for so long was because she was living on illusion and other people's generosity. That illusion cracked fast. The story of her eviction spread slowly through the neighborhood. I never told anyone directly. I didn't need to. One by one, the truth leaked out through quiet conversations and watchful neighbors. Mrs. Sandoval mentioned it to her book club. Rick brought it up during a golf game. Even the HOA president emailed me personally to apologize for misunderstanding the nature of her occupancy and for any assumptions they had made. She was, in her words, deeply sorry for letting community gossip override the facts. It was all more validation than I needed. But it didn't stop there. Marlene lost her social standing almost overnight. No more brunch invites. No more garden parties. Her name disappeared from the neighborhood events page. She was quietly removed from 2 local community Facebook groups, banned for spreading misinformation and creating unnecessary conflict. She tried to claw back some sympathy, of course. One post surfaced under a burner account, clearly hers, where she claimed she had been tricked by her ungrateful stepson, that she was promised a place in the family home and had been emotionally abused and targeted by legal manipulation. But screenshots are forever, and unfortunately for her, I'd already posted a carefully worded public statement, just once, on my personal page, laying out the facts. I was the sole owner of the home. My mother's will had named me her successor and beneficiary. Marlene had never paid rent, signed a lease, or held any legal claim to the property. Any allegations she made were attempts to reverse engineer ownership of something she was never entitled to. I didn't name call. I didn't attack. I let the truth speak. And people listened. That post got shared dozens of times across local forums, including one on estate fraud awareness, where people began comparing notes and experiences with their own Marlene types. Apparently, she wasn't unique. Her name became a cautionary tale. As for my dad, he didn't bounce back the way she did. He tried, for a while, to distance himself from the whole thing. Tried telling people he wasn't involved, that he just wanted peace, and that I had overreacted. But records don't lie. The court didn't lie. The absence of any kind of apology, public or private, spoke volumes. We didn't speak for months. He sent one email after the hearing. It was 3 sentences long. I'm sorry for what happened. I didn't know how to stop it. I hope someday we can talk again. I didn't respond. Because that wasn't an apology, it was a deflection. An oops from a man who watched it all happen and did nothing. A man who sat beside a woman as she tried to take away everything his late wife had left behind. Who watched me struggle, get pushed out of my own house, have my mail stolen, my bank accounts tampered with, my childhood pet taken, and still kept quiet. He made his choice, and I made mine. I moved forward. The house, once a battleground, slowly became mine again in every way. The floral candles were tossed. The lemon-scented nonsense went in the trash. I hired a team of contractors and started the renovations my mom had always dreamed about but never got around to. We knocked down the kitchen wall and opened the space into a beautiful dining area with natural light. I restored the hardwood floors, added new windows, and turned the garage into a home office with skylights. Chelsea, the interior designer who helped me months ago, became a regular presence. She had an eye for color, for warmth, and she respected the sentimental value of every piece of furniture I kept. Together, we rebuilt the heart of the home. Not to forget what had happened, but to reclaim it, to overwrite the bad memories with better ones. Bailey took some time to adjust. For the first few weeks, he'd jump at every sound, hide in closets, sleep under the bed instead of on it. But slowly, his confidence returned. He started greeting me at the door again, climbing onto my desk during Zoom meetings, pawing at the sunbeams in the kitchen, just like he used to when Mom was still alive. Life, in its own time, healed. And then came the letter. 6 months after the lawsuit ended. A plain envelope. No return address. Inside, a single piece of paper. No signature. No greeting. Just typed words. I didn't take your cat to hurt you. I took him because I thought I deserved something to love, too. You were always going to win. But I hope you know, I never hated you. I just wanted a place where I mattered. I stared at it for a long time. Marlene, even now, still trying to write her own version of the story. Still pretending she was just misunderstood. Still not taking responsibility. I burned the letter in the fireplace that night. Not out of spite. Out of finality. Because I didn't need to hold on to anything else she touched. Not her words. Not her memory. Not even her guilt. Everything she tried to take, my house, my peace, my identity, was mine again. The revenge wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was in every quiet morning I woke up to a house that felt like home again. In every time Bailey purred on my chest. In every friend who dropped by and said, "Man, this place looks amazing." In every contractor who complimented the layout. In every night I sat at my mom's piano. Yes, I tracked it down at the resale store and bought it back, and let the chords echo through the same walls she once filled with music. They tried to take everything, and now they had nothing. And I had more than they ever understood. Not just a house, but freedom, closure, and peace that couldn't be stolen, sold, or forged. Final line. I didn't just get my home back. I got me back. And this time, no one's taking either.